Yeah, that's good. Okay, testing. Okay, testing. Yeah, you can hear it? Okay. So good evening. Hello and welcome to everyone. Uh, my name is Tenzin Namjong, and here at Choe Khor Sum Ling on Saturday night, we've been doing this series of kind of sutra teachings, and we're in the middle of a text that you should all have in front of you. Hymn to the Buddha. And I think Venerable Lecton, we went over, there's some different views about the author of the text. In any case, Ashwagosha, Aryasura, whatever the source of the teachings, this text has been, it's cited in the Lamrim, and to reflect on these verses, reflecting on the qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, or sorry, the Buddha, then it's good for us to do. Can you hear me? Yeah. Yeah. So I see Dilshad tuning in. Eid Mubarak. How do you say? It was a couple of days ago, right? So, hi, Dilshad. Okay. So anyway.
Hello, Venerable. Thank you so much.
So anyway, at the beginning of the teaching, then let's just take a moment to adjust our motivation. So please think in this way, that the purpose of our life is to benefit all sentient beings. And in particular, in order to lead all sentient beings from the oceans of samsara suffering to the state completely beyond sorrow, the state of enlightenment, then we ourselves must first achieve the state of enlightenment. Then and only then will we have the good qualities, the skills, the knowledge, the wisdom to guide sentient beings in the most effective way to be free from the oceans of samsara suffering and lead to enlightenment. And therefore, we're going to receive this teaching and reflect on the marvelous qualities of the Buddha, so that we can one day, very soon, we hope, achieve all those same qualities within our own minds, so we can also lead our sentient beings to do the same. Okay? All right. So, have all of you here, have you been to the other teachings on this text? You have. Yes, no, maybe so. Okay. Well, in any case, now Choe Khor Sum Ling has expanded its roster of teachers, which is very good. It's very good, because before, like way before, you had many more coming, and then Geshe Namrod graduated. He went to England. Venerable Rapton he's spending less time here in India. We don't see him as much. So it was down to just me and Venerable Lexo. So now we've expanded again, and you have a more full roster. And so the different teachers, we take turns teaching the same text, which on one hand is good, because you'll see we have individual styles, we have individual kind of things that we like to emphasize. So for me, I like to contextualize the teachings into the Lamrim, the stages of the path to enlightenment. Okay, so when we view such a text like this, right, with praise to the Buddha, then where would this fit into Lamrim? Right. So we have the Lamrim, the stages of the path to enlightenment, which forms a whole outline of the entire Buddhist teachings. Right. Now, where I study, where your other teachers have studied, at Seta J, the great monastic seats, the great monastic universities, then we don't study Lamrim explicitly. It's not part of the curriculum. Rather, we study the Shum Kapong Ma, the 5 great treatises, right? But the Lamrim, right, is very much praised as being the kind of distillation, right, condensing all the Buddhist teachings in a very user-friendly format, right? So as you'll see in the beginning of the Lamrim, when it talks about the greatness of the Lamrim, it says that actually when it talks about the source of the teachings, of course, is the Buddha. But then even the Buddha's teachings, as it passed down through the generations, there was what it was later known as the profound view lineage that passed down from Buddha to Arya Nagarjuna through Aryadeva and so forth. And then there's the extensive deeds lineage that passed from Buddha to Maitreya to Asanga and so forth. And so one of the greatnesses of the Lamrim is it contains all of those, both lineages of the profound view and extensive deeds. And we mentioned the extensive deeds lineage went from Buddha Shakyamuni to Maitreya, and Maitreya wrote a very precious text, the Abhisamaya Alankara. So, or ornament of clear realization. And so, okay. The Buddha taught the Prajnaparamita Sutras. Those of you who are with us in the little prayer session we had at 5 o'clock, we recited the Heart Sutra. And the Prajnaparamita, or the perfection of wisdom, is, contained many different sutras, the Heart Sutra being one of them. The explicit content of the Prajnaparamita Sutras is the profound view, right? So we talked about from Buddha, we had the profound view lineage. So that was the explicit content of the Prajnaparamita teachings. But then we had this other lineage. What did we say that was? Extensive deeds, right? Extensive deeds, right? So when we talk about profound view, it's just the kind of philosophical view that realizes ultimate reality, right? But that's kind of the view, the philosophical view that we meditate on. But what happens when we arise from the meditation cushion and we have to go out into the world, right? Well, there's other practices that the bodhisattva, or someone who is not yet enlightened but wishes to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all living beings, they have to engage in generosity, ethical discipline, practicing patience, enthusiastic perseverance, and meditation. meditative stabilization, right? So, in the Prajnaparamita Sutras, you'll see, like, for example, there'll be lists of, all of these practices. There's 37 factors harmonious with enlightenment, the 10 powers of the Buddha, the, Eightfold Noble Path, right? But it won't really go into it in much detail. It'll just mention that all of these things are empty. Kind of like in the Heart Sutra, what we saw, right? There is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, right? So even when you look in the Prajnaparamita Sutra of 100,000 stanzas or 25,000 stanzas, you'll see many lists. And it'll just say, this is empty. Okay. So in the Abhisamaya Alamkara by Maitreya, it is said that that is the commentary on the hidden meaning of the Prajnaparamita, right? So whereas, for example, in the Heart Sutra, when you see the question by Shariputra, how should a Bodhisattva train who wishes to practice the profound perfection of wisdom, right? That's a question. Okay. Now, what does that explicitly say? It's just saying, how does the Bodhisattva practice? But implicitly, then is mentioning a Bodhisattva and them wishing to train the profound perfection of wisdom, right? So the question comes up, what's a Bodhisattva? And why do they want to train in the profound perfection of wisdom in the first place? Before we say how do they train, we want to know why. Why do they want to train, right? And here then, the answer is this mind of bodhicitta, right? So even in that question, bodhisattva, bodhi being enlightenment, sattva being, being, then they wish to train the profound perfection of wisdom. Why? Because they have the wish to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. That, in brief, is the mind of bodhicitta. So in Maitreya's Abhisamaya Alamkara, then he gives that the definition of bodhicitta. He talks about the divisions of bodhicitta, and then you can understand what in the explicit meaning you just see the word, bodhicitta, but then Maitreya will expand on it. Okay, so then in Lamrim you'll see the both the profound view and the extensive deeds lineage kind of brought together in one text. So this is the kind of benefit, the special distinguishing feature of the Lamrim text, that it encapsulates all the teachings of Buddha. And that's why in this center, in other centers, in these days in the Tibetan tradition, you'll see the Lamrim teachings given over and over. Okay. So then, those of you who've studied Lamrim before, even those outlines then become a very good framework with which we can kind of understand how all the teachings fit together. Then later, when you encounter any text, you'll be able to kind of say, oh, this kind of belongs here in the Lamrim outlines. Okay, sort of like, okay, sorry if you couldn't tell from my accent, I'm from the US, right? And then in the US, we have the Christmas tree. Okay, so we have a tree, and then around Christmas time, we hang different ornaments on it, right? I've seen it at some of the malls here in Bangalore. Okay, right? Anyway, so like that, you have a tree, you hang ornaments on the various branches. If we understand Lamrim well, then we'll have an outline, and then when we encounter teachings like this, we'll be able to say, okay, This is where this teaching kind of fits in the Dharma. Okay. So now my question to you is, this text, hymn to the Buddha, praising the Buddha, where would it fit in Dharma?
Responsible. Very good responsible.
Okay, keep going.
Refuge.
Okay. Right. Keep going.
The qualities of Buddha.
Okay. Yeah, not bad. So anyway, like that, right? You'll be able to identify exactly sort of which outline it is. So if you couldn't hear Shanti in the back, first she said small scope. But small scope is like a huge branch, you know. So you have to be more specific. And then, okay, refuge, qualities of Buddha, like this. Okay. So in any case, right, this concept of refuge, right, is one of the main topics in Lamrim. And within that, so to review, I'm contextualizing, right? We have refuge, and then we ask, what are the causes of taking refuge? And then we say that the causes of taking refuge are two: fear and faith. Fear being, okay, it started monsoon, finally. Oh, just by the way, has it been raining okay here? Sporadic. Around where Sarah Monastery is, in Bailakupi, also in Karnataka, then the rain has come late, and there's many farms, fields around, and many of the crops were just totally dried out. So we had received some requests to say prayers to make it rain. Anyway, it has started to rain a bit. And so you know, right? One day, a couple days ago, I was caught in the rain. Is the kind of beginner's mistake in the monsoon, to be leaving your house without an umbrella, even though it looks really clear skies. Within a few minutes, the weather can change and you can get all soaking wet. So that's what happened to me. In any case, when it starts raining, right? This is what we talk about, refuge, right? When it starts raining, you seek for refuge, right? From getting wet. So when we talk about fear and faith, the fear is not that, oh, I'm afraid, but it's just we recognize that there's some experience, some state that we don't want to experience. In the worldly context, we don't want to get wet. Okay. Now, I also grew up in a tropical place, and you know, as a kid, sometimes when it would rain, we'd play in the rain, right? So in that instance, I didn't have the fear of getting wet, so I didn't seek a refuge, right? I just stayed out in the rain, played. It's fun. Okay, so the fear in this case, we need to understand the sort of more profound level, the state we're in. In particular, the state of samsara, that we are experiencing one kind of unsatisfactory state or another without our control. Okay? We don't decide to be sick. We don't decide, you know, that we get passed up for promotion at work. We don't decide that our, you know, romantic partner leaves us. We don't decide, you know, that we die. We don't decide where we were born, right? So all these are projected, as it were, by our karma and afflictions. And being in this state of no control and experiencing one unsatisfactory experience or another is what it means, in brief, to be trapped in samsara. So anyway, recognizing this, then we seek the refuge. We seek the protection from that. So going back to the worldly example, if, once I understand that I don't want to get wet, then I look for something that can protect me from it. And so when I see a building or something with a nice roof, I think, oh, if I go under that, I won't get wet. And then I go there, right? So similarly, once we understand the drawbacks of our current situation, our situation in samsara, then we ask, okay, what is an appropriate sort of source of refuge that can protect me from these sufferings that I find in samsara? And then that leads us to understand, as Chandrakirti, the great Indian master Chandrakirti said in the 70 stanzas of refuge, that the three jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, are the refuge for those seeking liberation. Means liberation from samsara. Now, all that being said, where we actually see refuge, as Shanti mentioned, it's in the small scope, right? So here, just for review, you at home, you know that the Lam Rim is basically divided then into three sort of main branches, three main sections that correspond to the three types of person, the three Purusha, in badly pronounced Sanskrit, Purusha, right? Kebu in Tibetan, right? Okay. I was told, here in India, we gotta use the Sanskrit, right? Okay. So anyway, this word actually is found in Bhagavad Gita, and it means, well, in this sense, we can just think of it as a person, yes, but a person, how are they distinguished? They're distinguished by their role for their spiritual practice. Why are they practicing Dharma, right? And so the three persons are differentiated by their goal. And each of the three have a kind of broader and more encompassing goal for their practice. So the first, the so-called small person, they're interested just in getting a good rebirth in the next life, right? Now, it also includes, technically speaking, it also includes people, maybe like me, only thinking about the happiness of this life, right? But, the kind of distinguished small or initial practitioner at least seeks a good rebirth in their next life, seeing that, through impermanence and death, this life is not going to last long, and when they pass away from this life, the consciousness is going to continue and go on to another rebirth. So then, understanding the two paths one can go, either to the lower realms as an animal or worse, or the higher realms, a human or deva, then one doesn't want to get rebirth as an animal and instead wants to gain a good rebirth. Then asking what are the causes of those respective rebirths, and seeing that the lower rebirth is caused by negative actions and the higher rebirths are caused by positive actions, then sort of diligently trying to abandon negative karma as much as we can and accumulate as much virtue. Okay, that's a small scope. Middle scope is to gain the liberation from all of samsara. So not just wanting to not get a lower rebirth, but not trying to be reborn or trying to not be reborn in any samsaric existence. Because even as a human, which is relatively good, it's still only relatively good relative to what? A lower rebirth. But even as a human, we still experience so much suffering, isn't it? Then the great scope or the great capability practitioner, they don't just want mere nirvana, liberation for themselves, but they want to achieve full enlightenment for the benefit, so they can be of utmost benefit for all sentient beings, right? Okay. So that's the overall framework. The section on refuge is actually found in the lower scope because, well, each of the three scopes have their own reasons for taking refuge, right? You can take refuge not wanting to be reborn in the lower realms. You can take refuge not wanting to be reborn in samsara. You can take refuge, right, to want to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. But it comes first in the lower scope because we were saying the cause of the lower rebirth is negative karma. Now, as much as we are diligent and conscientious in abandoning negative karma in this life, unfortunately, throughout all samsaric rebirth from beginningless time, we've accumulated countless karmic imprints. And so even if we're very good boys and girls in this life, still stored within our mental continuum are countless karmic imprints. Even one can project us into a lower rebirth. So if on the other hand, right, so at the time of our death, if we can somehow make sure that we activate a positive karma, then we'll be assured of a good rebirth. Okay? All right. So more on that in a couple of minutes. But for now, the small scope practitioner, they are wanting to be free from rebirth in the lower realm, and therefore seeking some way to protect themselves from that, they go for refuge to the three jewels. Then, how do we know that the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, are worthy sources of refuge? Then we have to understand about the qualities, their distinguishing characteristics. So overall, it first talks about why the Buddha is a fitting source of refuge. And there's four outlines there. There's four reasons. One is the Buddha is free from all fears, right? Second, the Buddha is skilled in teaching. Third, the Buddha has compassion for all beings. And fourth, the Buddha has compassion for all beings, whether or not they have benefited him in the past. So normally we could think, okay, all four are needed. Even if since we're wanting to be free from fear ourselves, we need to rely on someone who has transcended those fears, right? But even if they've transcended the fears, if they don't have compassion, if they aren't skilled in teaching, they might just say, we could ask them, oh, yeah, can you help me be free? And I say, I don't know, right? That won't be of much benefit to us. So they're skilled in teaching, and then they also have compassion, means they want to help us. So you could also imagine, someone who could help us, but because they don't have compassion for us, they don't help us, right? And then the last point, the fact that they want to help us isn't dependent on us pleasing them or praising them or doing, anything. It's not like a quid pro quo, right? they just have compassion for us because we're sentient beings, and that's enough reason. Okay? So then after it goes into the 4 reasons why the Buddha is a valid source of refuge, then it goes into the qualities of the Buddha, right? And the qualities of the body, qualities of the speech, qualities of the mind. Qualities of the mind is then the quality of knowing, the quality of care or compassion, right? And then also talks about the qualities of the enlightenment activities like this. Okay, so that is the sort of outline of Lamrim. Now, when we look at this text, then we can see, all right, well, what are the qualities that are being described, and we can relate it back to our Lamrim sort of outline. Okay, so this is an important point, because I mentioned at our time of death we want a method by which we can be sure that we activate a previously accumulated positive action, right? So that's why we want to reflect on the Buddha. So I'll just read from Lamrim Chenmo, right, by Lama Tsongkhapa. Okay, so this is at the end of talking about all the qualities that we mentioned, the qualities of the Buddha's body, the qualities of the Buddha's speech, the quality of the Buddha's mind, quality of the enlightened activities. Okay, so then at the end, the proceeding briefly summarizes the way to reflect on the Buddha. If you reflect in a variety of ways, your faith will also arise in many ways. The more you reflect, the stronger and more enduring your faith will become. The same applies to the good qualities of the other 2 jewels. Other 2 jewels are Dharma and Sangha. Yes. When you have gained certainty by meditating in this way, you will understand that the scriptures and their commentaries are instructions, in that most of them teach the good qualities of the 3 refuges. People who reject analytical meditation as practice, thinking that it is mere conceptualization, shut off many such ways of accumulating meriting, clearing away obscuration. Therefore, be aware that such a rejection is a great obstacle to taking advantage of the boundless potential of a life of leisure and opportunity. So what is this saying? So some people, not you, of course, but you might come, or someone might come to the thought that, just have to meditate, and meditation is somehow making your mind become blank, like empty vacuum, right? Well, here, in particularly emphasized in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition and this Gelugpa tradition, we see analytic meditation, where we use our analysis, we use our intelligence to reflect. And in this case, we reflect on the good qualities of Buddha, right? So, I mentioned that text, the Abhisama Alamkara, yeah, right? Maitreya's text on the hidden meaning of the Kajak Adamita. So that, it has 8 chapters. And the first chapter is the chapter on the omniscient mind of the Buddha. And so in the context of that teaching, then in some of the commentaries it asks, okay, of all the the things to discuss first. Why to discuss the omniscient mind first? And the answer, they say, is, well, when you understand all the good qualities of an omniscient mind, you will have a sort of liking and an aspiration to attain that yourself, right? So in a similar way, in a worldly manner, right? You meet a friend you haven't seen in a while, and wow, they look like they're, in shape, right? They've lost some weight, right? Complexion's nice, no bags under the eyes. Like, wow, you're looking great. They say, yeah, I've been working out. I've been, doing intermittent fasting, whatever, right? Whatever kind of regimen. And yeah, I'm a lot healthier. Then you get to stop. Oh, wow, I want to do that too. Tell me more about this diet, this exercise. Huh? It happened to us? Anyway, point being, when we see the results that we then like and want to emulate, then we inquire, okay, what are the practices, what are the causes that led to that result? And then we try to do, right? So the more you practice these things, the more accustomed your mind will become to them, and the easier it will be to practice what you had initially found difficult to learn. You will develop the spirit of enlightenment, thinking, I too should obtain Buddhahood like the Buddha whom I recollect. You will have visions of the Buddha day and night. No matter how much you suffer at death, you will not lose your recollection of the Buddha. The King of Concentration Sutra says, so this is the Buddha speaking, I instruct you, and you should understand, people's minds become absorbed in something to the degree they reflect on it. Therefore, recollect the master of the sages as having a conqueror's physical posture and limitless sublime wisdom. If you constantly familiar yourself with such recollection, your mind will become absorbed in it. You will desire the sublime wisdom of a holy being, whether you walk, sit, stand, or recline. Because you yourself will want to become a supreme conqueror in the world, you will also make prayers aspiring to enlightenment. Constantly give praise to the Buddhas with your body, speech, mind, and mind of clear faith. By conditioning your mind stream in this way, you'll see the protector of the world day and night. Should you suffer the approach of death in sickness and sorrow, your recollection of the Buddha will not be lost. It will not be erased by your suffering. Okay. So this is, I think, one of the reasons why we, the center wanted this text sort of taught this praise of the Buddha. Then the more we can reflect on the good qualities, then it will stay in mind. And in particular, at the time of death, the sort of easy way to ensure a good rebirth is to recall an object of your faith. Of course, if you have a guru, then even easier than reflecting on the Buddha, because, well, we didn't meet the Buddha in person, but we did meet. As long as Dharma comes over, we should. But nonetheless, as we know in the teachings on Guru devotion, we should, reflect that, our Guru is kind of same in essence as the historical Buddha, as Mātṛceṭa, as Guru Rinpoche, as Aryatara, and so forth. Okay. Anyway, one last little passage here by Geshe Botawa. If you reflect on the Buddha's good qualities again and again, you will receive a blessing commensurate with the strength of your faith and the purity of your mind. Because you have gained certainty about them, you'll go for refuge from the depths of your heart and train yourself in the precept of refuge. Then everything you do will become a practice for the teaching. Okay. So that was my introduction and contextualization of this text. So now let us go through the actual text. So you're on page, oh, I don't know what page, but chapter 9. Stanza 92. So I'm just gonna read through the text and at certain stanzas, give a little bit of commentary. Okay. So just to hear, so praise of the benefits conferred. Just to hear you brings joy, just to look upon you calms the heart. Your speech refreshes and your teaching frees. Yeah. So as Lama Tsongkhapa said, he wrote a text also praising the Buddha called Matrceta. So normally you can see it translated as praise of dependent origination, but actually it's praising the Buddha for teaching dependent origination. You know how we were saying that the root cause of all our suffering is the misapprehension, the ignorant mind that grasps to a distorted view of reality, right? So in that text by Tsongkhapa, he said, you know, of all of the how do you say, praises, ways to praise the Buddha, by praising the Buddha for him having taught dependent origination, that is the real praise. Everything else is sort of lesser. Okay. So why? Why? So in the same text, Lama Tsongkhapa says, you know, of all of the activities of the Buddha, then the activity of teaching is the supreme. Okay. And then of all, even of those teaching activities, then the teaching of dependent origination is the supreme among the supreme. So why?
But actually liberating us.
Yes, right.
It negates the source of all other suffering.
That's right. 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 So yeah, you know, in that Jiting, the third stanza. Jiting gupa jinipa de sawa marite. Jiten is the world. Gupa is like a suffering. Malupa, all suffering, without exception. De sawa, the root of that, maripa, marite, ignorance. Right? Asa. Oh my gosh. Okay, so then though that the one who saw that the way to sort of stop that, you know, the way to stop that, then taught dependent origination. Okay. So since the ignorant mind doesn't see reality as it is, the only way to overcome that is to then see reality. How do we see reality? Since we sentient beings are obscured, we need to have a, you know, a faultless teacher point out, hey, this is how things really are. Then based on that, we can arrive at the correct view ourselves, right? So that's why here it says you're teaching freeze. You're teaching freeze. Freeze liberates from samsara. Okay. People rejoice at your birth. They celebrate as you grow. They benefit from your presence and sorrow in your absence. To praise you removes faults. Okay, so people rejoice at your birth. You'll know from the sort of life story of the Buddha in the praise that we normally recite before teaching occasion. You know, when you were born in this world, you paced out 7 strides and then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise then, I prostrate, right? So at that time, the many sort of devas knew that the young prince was destined to become the Buddha, and it is said they offered a kind of bath at the time of the Buddha's birth, right? To praise you removes faults, to recollect you brings joy, to follow you gives understanding, to know you purifies the heart. To approach you brings good fortune, to serve you gives wisdom, to worship you dispels fear, to wait upon you bestows prosperity. Wait upon you. So, it's kind of like we say a waiter at a restaurant, right? Means serving, right? You are a great lake of goodness with waters purified by virtue, surface calm by meditation, and depths stilled by wisdom. So my opinion here, right? This refers to the 3 higher trainings. Waters purified by virtue means the 3 higher trainings of ethical discipline. Surface calm by meditation means, meditative stabilization. So just like the surface of a lake, if there's many waves, you can't see in. And then the depth of it, still by wisdom. That's the third of the 3 higher trainings. Your form is a jewel to see. Your speech is a jewel to hear. Your teachings are a jewel to reflect on. Truly, you are a mind bearing the jewels of goodness. So here, our late great teacher was Alonzo Rinpoche. He was very fond of glossing this term, kuncho. Kuncho. So normally, okay, the Sanskrit, ratna, jewel. Okay, no problem. But when they translated that word into Tibetan, they used kuncho. So kun has a connotation of being rare. Cho is supreme. So sometimes Rinpoche is very fond of translating that term as, rare, sublime one. Rare, sublime one. Okay. So it is rare because in general, your form is a jewel to see. So it's rare. We don't see many Buddhas in the world, unfortunately. Your speech is also a jewel, rare, means, since the view of emptiness is so difficult, before the Buddha taught at Sarnath, there's no one who was teaching this, right? That's why they say the Buddha turned the wheel of Dharma for the first time in a place where there is no Dharma. And your teachings are a jewel to reflect upon, right? Truly, you're a mind bearing the jewels of goodness. Okay. You're an island for those swept along by a flood, shelter for those stricken, a refuge for those in fear of becoming, a resort for those who aspire to liberation. So here, one thing to gloss. So, in my opinion, okay, becoming, okay. So you'll see that word in the 12 links of interdependent origination. Yes, 12 links of interdependent origination. So that is sipa. Now, sipa is also another way of describing samsara, sipa koro, right? Or sipa kowa, okay? So in some translations, you'll see that just as existence, right? But what that means is existence projected by karma and afflictions. So those who fear a type of rebirth from karma and afflictions, then the Buddha is refuge for them, right? So therefore, a refuge for those in fear of becoming a resort for those who aspire to liberation. To all living beings, you're a useful vessel because of your virtue, a fertile field because of your perfect fruit, a true friend because of the benefits you confer. So here again, fruit. So fruit also can be glossed as drebu in Tibetan, which means effect, right? So we have the causes and the effect. The causes is all the trainings that the Buddha engaged in while he still was unenlightened. Then the fruit of that, the perfect fruit is the state of enlightenment. So another way to think of it, he's a fertile field because he has attained the final goal of enlightenment, right? Now, this field, okay, another kind of more poetic term, we talk about the field of merit, right? Field of merit. So when we engage in a certain practice, then we'll visualize, the Buddha in front of us, with surrounded by the other lineage gurus, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, so forth. So that is called the field of merit, because now in our sadhana, in our practice, we will make offerings, visualize an actual offerings. We'll think that we're offering that to the field of merit. Yeah. And so just in the field, when we plant seeds, then later we'll get a harvest. So similarly, by accumulating merit in relation to holy beings like the Buddha, then those ripening effect of those actions become even more powerful. Right? Lama Zopa Rinpoche is very fond of telling the story found in the Sutra, where I think it was King Koshika. Anyway, a great king in the time of the Buddha, and then the Buddha, through his omniscient wisdom, could see the kind of karmic cause for King Koshika to be reborn as a king in that life. And it was because in one of that king's previous lives, he offered some medicinal gruel to 4 monks. Just 4 monks. These were ordinary monks, not Buddhas, not Bodhisattvas, not anything particularly special about them, just ordinary monks. But, through the power of that, he was then born as a great and powerful king. Okay? So it says in the teachings that, in general, from generosity comes wealth. But there are certain fields, means recipients of our generosity, that will make those actions even more powerful. And they call it the field of qualities, the field of kindness, and the field of suffering. So the field of qualities is these great beings, Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Arhats, so forth, even the ordinary Sangha. Field of kindness would be your parents or your teachers, those who have been kind to you. And then the field of suffering will be like people who are very destitute, sick, prisoners, like people in very bad situation. Yeah. So in relation to them, it's also said our actions become relatively more powerful, to the point where normally our karma that we accumulate in this life, we won't experience in this life. We'll experience it in future lives. Now, the other aspect to that is what we experience in this life is also not due to the actions we've taken in this life. Okay? It's a double-edged sword. Based on that, Atisha, the great Indian master Atisha, said, what we experience in this life is the ripening of karmic actions we've done in previous lives, therefore remain calm. Right? Therefore remain calm. So I will just say, sometimes, it happens a lot. There might be, like a business deal that we want going through or something, whatever. And then people will sponsor pujas at the monastery. And sometimes it can help. Of course it helps, but sometimes the timeline of the help isn't the timeline that we want, right? Of course we're generating merit, but it's not just that we want the merit, but we want to experience the good ripening effect of that merit in the short term. So that's a little bit difficult. Okay? But through relying on the great field of merit, as Lama Tsongkhapa said, when we have obstacles arise, then to particularly emphasize making offerings to the strong field of merit can bring about results quickly. Okay. You are admired for your altruism, charming for your tenderness, beloved for your gentleness, and honored for your many virtues. You are cherished because of your flawless. You are cherished because of your flawlessness. Delightful because of the goodness of your form and speech. Opulent because you promote the good of all, and blessed because you are the abode of virtues. Okay. So again, a special uncommon quality of the Buddha is flawlessness. Even beings who attain nirvana, liberation from samsara, they still have some subtle flaws. Okay, chapter 10, in praise of guidance. You admonish the stubborn, restrain the hasty, and straighten the crooked. You encourage the slow and harness the tamed. Truly, you are the unsurpassed guide of men. Okay. So, here, the Buddha's, this is why we need to attain enlightenment, because the Buddha has all those skillful means to know, sometimes unruly beings, they need to be admonished, right? Especially the stubborn ones, right? Isn't it? So, the Buddha has at his disposal the whole range of skillful tactics and means to guide sentient beings, right? And is also skilled in knowing when to use them and in relation to whom. Okay. Now, of course, there's the so-called four activities, the four types of enlightenment activities, right? And the first one is peaceful, then increasing, then kind of controlling, and then wrathful. So it says we should go kind of in that order. First, peaceful, be nice. increasing means, trying to encourage the person to increase their virtues. Controlling, you might, like your parents might have grounded you, so you stay and study, right? Then wrathful. Okay. But just like parents might have the aspects of scolding, right? Like when the child runs off into the street, don't do that again. The mind still has the best interest of the child in the heart. If the mother, the child runs into the street, oh, honey, don't play in the traffic. It might not have the effect that is needed, right? Huh? So sometimes you have to do, show a little bit, how do you say it? More, yeah, okay. You have to show different aspects, right? So sometimes you see in these tankas, right? They have some of these enlightened beings with flames around them, holding like swords and clubs and, all this stuff. This is symbolic meaning. Symbolic meaning. Anyway, all of this is to say, the Buddha is entirely skilled in using those four kinds of activities. And not only that, but knows in relation to which disciple to show which aspect. So, before you're Buddha, you make mistakes. Like we were saying, flawlessness. That only the Buddha has. Okay. You have pity for the suffering, goodwill for the happy, compassion for the distressed, benevolence for all. Yeah. The hostile evoke your warmth. The immoral receive your help. The fierce find you tender. How wonderful is your noble heart. So there's a very, famous, okay. So you might know one of the Buddha's cousins, Devadatta, very jealous of the Buddha. The Buddha, of course, had so many followers. His cousin Devadatta then, was jealous of that and was trying to always kind of bring the Buddha down, so to speak, destroy his reputation. Even got to the point where Devadatta tried to kill the Buddha. At one point, actually several times, but at one point, the Devadatta challenged the Buddha. And it was like a challenge of like how much something, maybe, okay, it's not this, but it's like this, like how much ghee can you consume? Getting into some kind of a contest like this, right? So of course, Buddha's enlightened, the body not like ours. But Devadatta kept, trying to have more and more and more, got very, very, very sick, right? Had like, leaders of the ghee got very sick. So the Buddha, now what will we do? Right? Okay, not we, but someone else, right? You dare to challenge me and now you lose. I'll be like, that serves you right. Don't challenge me again. Huh? Right? No. What the Buddha said was compassion toward all sentient beings. This is what we're saying. The fourth reason why the Buddha is a valid source of refuge: compassion to all beings, whether or not they've helped or harmed them in the past. So then the Buddha said, okay, the Buddha comes and showing compassion, and Devadatta says, oh, now you're just faking. You're just faking it to make a show in front of everyone. And the Buddha said, no. I have as much love and compassion for you as my own son, Rahula. By the power of that truth, may be cured, and Devadatta is cured. So, the hostile evoke your warmth. In the Pramanavartika by Chandrakirti, it also says another yeah. You can imagine if the Buddha were here on one side being sort of massaged with sandalwood oil, right? Very nice. On the other side, being stabbed with a dagger. But in the Buddha's mind, the love, compassion, concern having for both would be the same. Yeah. The immoral receive your help, like Devadatta. The fierce find you tender. How wonderful is your noble heart. If father and mother are to be honored because of their concern for their children, what reverence should you receive whose love has no limits? You're a wall of safety for those hovering at the edge of a cliff, those blind to their own welfare, those who are their own worst enemy. Who's that? That's us, beings in samsara. We're at the edge of a cliff. Why? Because at any time, death can come. Because we haven't, realized emptiness directly, because we haven't been liberated from samsara, we're still bound by our karma and afflictions. If at the time of death a negative karma arises, we'll fall off the cliff into rebirth as lower realm. So we're the ones hovering at the end of the cliff. Blind to your own welfare and those who are your own worst enemy. This recalls the statement in the Bodhisattva Chaivatara, right at the beginning. Although not wanting suffering, they run towards the causes of suffering. Although wanting to be happy, they destroy the causes of happiness like an enemy. That's us because of our ignorance. For the welfare of the two worlds and to help beings transcend them, you lit the lamp of wisdom among those who dwell in darkness. So, the two worlds I don't have the commentary in front of me, but my educated guess, is that the two worlds would be sort of the lower realms and the higher realms. Okay. So to help beings transcend them, the lower realms and the higher realms both are in samsara. Right? So lighting the lamp of wisdom to those who dwell in darkness means those who are bound by karma and afflictions, dwelling in the darkness of ignorance. To help them, that means all the beings within samsara. You lit the lamp of wisdom. When worldly enjoyments are at stake, men and gods act at variance with each other. But because they can enjoy the Dharma in harmony, they're reconciled in you. Okay? So, you understand? when worldly enjoyments are at stake, meaning, for example, in your company, only one person gets the promotion to CEO, right? If two people are in love with the same person, well, most of the time, in monogamous society, only one gets the girl, gets the man, right? Right. If you're in a sporting competition, only one gets the whatever Wimbledon trophy or whatever, right? Right. So in these worldly activities, okay, they act at variance with each other means they compete. Okay. It's a zero-sum game. If you know that expression, zero-sum game. There's one winner, one loser, right? Right. But because they can enjoy the Dharma in harmony, they are reconciled in you. Meaning, right? You can attain enlightenment. If you attain enlightenment, that doesn't mean there's only kind of one pass to enlightenment and then you win and then everyone else can't get enlightened. No. You can get enlightened, you can get enlightened, we can all get enlightened. So in that, we can come together. We can support each other, right? Therefore, reconciled in you means in your teaching. This is very important. That us practitioners, right? Meaning, right? We talk about His Holiness talks about this, world peace. How does world peace come? World peace through inner peace. So, through first having inner peace, then the beings we interact with on a day-to-day basis, they get that much peace from us. So, if we are not peaceful and harmonious with the people we come into contact with on a daily basis, how can we have world peace? It starts with those building blocks. So first, inner peace, then those we interact with on a day-to-day basis, then gradually the community, and then country, and then the world, and then all sentient beings. O Blessed One, you have given the comfort of Dharma unstintingly to all, regardless of birth, age, caste, regardless of time or place. Right? So yeah, as we were saying, the teachings then, it wasn't like exclusive, right? You had to subscribe to the Buddha's Patreon account to get access to the special teachings. It's not like that. O Blessed One, sorry, as if amazed and envious, the gods honor with joined palms even your disciples who, unlike them, are free from amazement and envy. So here, the disciples probably is referring to the Shravaka disciples like Shariputra, Moggallana, right? Those who, through following the Buddhist teachings, attained, some level of qualities surpassing that of gods. How brilliant is the arising of a Buddha, that cream of Sahasrara? I don't know what that is. But, we have the expression creme de la creme, right? So it means probably the best, right? Because of him, the gods envy mankind. So this is an important point. It says in the Ramana, when it talks about the suffering of the gods, the devas, You see, these devas, they're so immersed in worldly pleasures that they don't give any thought to practicing Dharma. Of course, they have tremendous merit to be reborn there, right? Due to the power of their merit, while they're living, they have like beautiful flower garlands that arise naturally. They don't have to go to the flower, etc. And tomorrow these might be wilted. You have to get new ones. No, it just stays due to the power of their merit. But 7 days before they pass away, they get these signs that they're about to die and the flowers start to wilt. And they realize the party soon is going to be over. And they also realize they're going to get reborn in lower realms because their merit is running out. So at that point, they start to smell, and their friends don't like the bad smell, so they kind of stay away from them. But they make prayers saying, may you get a good rebirth. Like, stay away, but we'll pray for you, get a good rebirth. And then Lama says, what they mean by good rebirth is rebirth in the human realm. Why? The gods envy mankind because in the human realm, one, the Buddhas appear. Two, there's enough suffering that we aren't complacent, but there's not too much suffering that we then, can't practice at all. Okay? Chapter 11, praise of arduous deeds. We go to 8 o'clock? Yeah? Huh?
Yes.
Nice. Fatigue, stanza 113. Fatigue, the loss of the joy of solitude, the company of fools, the press of a crowd, and the pairs of opposites. All these discomforts you endure as if they were blessings. So I don't think that the notes are included here. Okay, so I will just take a guess, an educated guess as to what this means. And you can look in note 29 to see if it's right. Okay, so here, right, this chapter, praise of arduous deeds, okay? So we were saying how wonderful the Buddha is. Then the question becomes, right, as we were saying, how did the Buddha become like that? The Buddha wasn't always the Buddha. The Buddha, through a path of training, then became perfect, right? So similarly, when we see the person in shape, we say, okay, what did you do? And they say, oh, I went to the gym, I went running, I gave up whatever. Sugar, whatever it is. So here, when we talk about the arduous deeds, means the hardships that the Buddha endured. Okay. So now fatigue, okay, means getting tired. Most of the time, we might fool ourselves into thinking we're practicing, but it's like, 15, 20 minutes, I'm so tired, I'm gonna do something else now, right? Loss of joy of solitude, the company of fools, the press of the crowd. Okay. And the pairs of opposites, that I need to see the note. But so the thing is, right? For some beings, they know being in crowds, it disturbs one's peace, right? But the Buddha, totally seeking to benefit sentient beings, will not just remain in solitude, but go out into the world and benefit. So, company of fools, right? Now, most of us, we don't want to be with fools. They're doing foolish things. It's not nice. But the Buddha wanting to benefit the ignorant beings who needs his help will seek the company of fools, the press of the crowd. Again, Now, what comes to my mind is like in a busy, train or something, right? People pressing against you. It's not nice. So this discomfort, all these different discomforts, the Buddha sees the benefit to sentient beings and therefore gladly engages in them. Okay? With a mind detached, you quietly work for the welfare of the world. How awesome is the Buddha nature of the Buddha? So normally when we talk about Buddha nature, we talk about the potential for sentient beings to be enlightened. In this line, it seems that they're using another sense of the word Buddha nature. Why? Because when we say Buddha nature of the Buddha, okay, is the Buddha nature of the Buddha in the Buddha's continuum? Yes, right? But the Buddha nature in the sense of potential to become enlightened, is that in the continuum of the Buddha? No. So, right, because we're having potential. The potential of a mango seed to become a mango sprout, that is there in the seed, but not in the sprout. The sprout has already actualized that potential. So in a kind of, let's say, strictly speaking, the Buddha does not have Buddha nature. Because the Buddha nature only, okay, when I'm saying Buddha nature, potential to become enlightened has to be in someone who's not enlightened yet. Okay, so therefore, in this sentence, I don't think it's referring to the potential to become enlightened, though the same word is there. Now, if you then gloss it in another way and say, how awesome is Buddha nature means, how awesome is it that sentient beings have the potential to become in such a way, then okay, right? Anyway. You ate poor food, sometimes you went hungry, you walked rough paths and slept on the ground, trampled hard by the hooves of cattle. So these are describing, the hardships the Buddha, endured to achieve enlightenment. Though you were the master, in order to serve others, you endured insults and adapted your clothes and words out of love for those whom you taught. So again, the Buddha was supreme in the world, but when he was insulted, he endured that. He didn't respond with anger. He didn't respond with insults when he was insulted. He didn't respond with abuse when he was abused. Right? Instead, he responded with love and wanted to benefit. You are the and then this about adapting clothes and words out of love for those whom you taught. So words, okay, that's a little bit easy to understand. the Buddha tailored his message to suit the kind of mind level, mindset, disposition, and so forth of the sentient beings he was teaching. And then clothes. Well, yeah, we can maybe think like this: the kind of robes of a renunciate, right? In other sort of aspects of the Buddha or other Buddhas, you see them in very beautiful silks and so forth. But according to the needs of the disciples at the time, showing the aspect of wearing just robes that were stitched together from pieces of cloth that were like then thrown away in the garbage heap. So the tradition was you would then find those scraps of cloth, sew them together, dye them, and wear that, right? Why? As an antidote to worldly pleasure, right? Practicing contentment instead. You're the Lord, but you never lord it over other. All may use you as a servant to obtain the help they need. No matter who provoked you, where or how, never did you transgress your own path of fair conduct. You help those who wish you ill more than most men help those who wish them well. Understand? You help those who wish you ill more than most men help those who wish them well. Understand? Okay. So here, yeah, this the story of Devadatta. Devadatta wished the Buddha ill, yet the Buddha, cured him. So
even some places it says like that even when they told Shanti Deva, they like kind of joke to Shanti Deva that you come and teach and all that. That he went with dignity. It wasn't like he showed that there's a kind of elegance or dignity, even though it showed a humble aspect, right? Shanti Deva.
okay.
I don't know if that aspect is also included. Like you don't come across as over or taking advantage of. I mean, the Buddha wants to say that yeah, you don't get fully nervous and all that. I don't know what to say. There's a kind of dignity and respectful, so that people respect him even though they are using or working with. Like when they told Shanti Deva, like you go and say this, he knew what they meant, right? That they were putting it like, and he still went and he thought,
Yes.
showing some miracle power and
Okay. So is there a question?
I'm asking if I mean, that would be also somehow included in that.
Including in what? No matter who provoked you, where and how, never did you transgress your own path of fair conduct.
Yeah, maybe there. Yeah.
Right?
I'm just saying that if someone was abused, they might become all emotional, but if the Buddha was abused, they like stay calm and kind of do something.
Yes. Well, yeah. Yes. Okay. Then.
I'm just saying.
Okay. Okay. So the main thing, and this is actually found in the kind of things that the monastics you train in, is what I had mentioned. When you're insulted, don't insult back. When you're abused, don't abuse back. When you're hit, don't hit back. Right? These kinds of things. So I think the path of fair conduct, I don't know what that's been translated from, but it just means, as Shantideva said, there's no austerity like patience. right? You know, right? There's no sin like hatred, therefore there's no, virtue like patience. There's no austerity like patience. So austerity would mean, like going without food, not sleeping, not lying down, wearing rough clothes. Well, all that, yeah, it's fine and good. But the real kind of austere practice of bearing hardship, right? Bearing hardship, it's practicing patience when we're harmed, not to harm back. To an enemy intent on evil, you are a friend intent on good. To one who gleefully seeks fault, you respond by seeking virtues. Yeah, I think what that means. So, others, they will like, try to find faults with you and then advertise your faults. So instead, like this is a stanza in the 37 practices of Bodhisattvas by Thomas Zangpo. The upshot is, even if someone should sort of advertise your concealed faults, in the world, in return, you only speak of their good qualities. Yeah, something like this. Can you imagine? Normally, what do? Someone speaks ill about us, then we hear about it and we're like, well, that person is even worse, or we expose their faults, right? A corollary to this in the same text, 37 practices of Bodhisattvas, it says one of the practices of Bodhisattvas is never to speak ill about another one who's entered the Mahayana. Now, what that means is, right? Remember, we were saying, who is faultless? Only the Buddha. So that means even Bodhisattvas, they will have some faults, right? But hey, we're human, right? We're not yet Buddhas. That means we do have mistakes. So rather than then, telling others, hey, you think whatever, you think whatever, Tenzin is so great. Yeah, you know what he did to me last week? I'll tell you, right? It's a risk. So, not to advertise to others. In fact, doing so, we see in the 10 non-virtues, divisive speech. Divisive speech being, when two people are harmonious, then to speak to one about the faults of the third person. Now, even if those faults are true, we shouldn't speak about it. Now, it could be the case that maybe, your own relationship with that person needs to be healed, but you do it in a skillful way, taking it offline, not in front of everyone. Right? This all will help promote and preserve harmony. Okay. Those who sought to give you poison and fire you. Huh? Those who sought to give you poison and fire you. Maybe burn you. Right? Fire you is like, the boss.
Karma after fire.
Huh?
Fire. There's a karma after fire.
Ale. Not here. Okay. Either way. But really it means burn you, right? Give you fire. What does that even mean? It means to burn you. Those who seek to harm you, kill you. Those who sought to give you poison you, to burn you. Instead, you approach with compassion and nectar. You conquered revilers, those who speak ill, with patience, the malicious with blessings, slanderers with truth, and the cruel with kindness. You reverse in an instant the manifold natures and evil destinies of those depraved from beginningless time. So here, the thought that comes, the story that comes to my mind is Angulimala. Angulimala, right? So remember the story of Angulimala, told by his teacher, if you okay, you want liberation, you have to kill 1,000 people, then you'll be liberated. So he killed 999, wore their fingers as a mala, hence Angulimala. Then number 1,000 was going to be the Buddha. So the Buddha, was walking, Angulimala chased after, right? Then, in one kind of, as much as Angulimala tried to run after, the Buddha was just pacing very slowly, but he could never catch up through miraculous kind of power. And at one point says, hey, why don't you stop? And the Buddha said, I have stopped. When are you going to stop? Something like this. So the import of this was, I have stopped, Buddha saying, I have stopped the mechanism of samsara. When are you going to stop? When are you going to free yourself from samsara? Anyway, in one instant, with one, kind of exchange, Angulimala totally reversed his ways, then, became an arhat in this life, in that life.
Practical level, actually determining how it would will.
Yeah.
It's a very skillful method. It sort of blunts the sword.
Is it what?
It blunts the sword.
Blunts the sword, yes, okay.
It stops the cycle of, talking against somebody else and then wanting the revenge and that vicious cycle. It really creates a goodwill, an atmosphere of positive atmosphere.
Yes, it does.
It requires a lot of patience.
So again, this is a question, a comment,
Just an observation.
observation. Okay, good.
Just after.
I agree with your observation 100%. Okay, thank you. Okay, chapter 12, in praise of skill. Through your skill in teaching, the rough became gentle, the mean became generous, and the cruel became kind. Ananda, not Ananda, Ananda, one word, became serene. Mātṛceṭa, humble. I bet this is Angulimala. Wow. Compassionate. Who not be amazed? So, yeah. I think, okay, so Ananda was, oh, wait a minute. This could just be Nanda. Nanda, not Ananda. Nanda was one of the Buddha's relatives as well. And he was the one who, although he was ordained, still had a lot of attachment for his wife. He was married. His cousin, the Buddha, became, the Buddha. So he was like, okay, I'll go ordain. But he still had a lot of attachment for his wife. So then, through the Buddha's, skillful teaching, became serene, means peaceful, not overcome with lust. So I'm not exactly sure, but Mātṛceṭa, the humble. So there was one king, and here I don't know, this is a Pali word maybe. I don't know Tibetan, but there was one king who's very skilled at playing the vina, the stringed instrument. And so the Buddha, to humble, the pride, then kind of went there through miraculous emanation and said, okay, if there's 4 strings, let's now play with just 3 strings, and then 2 strings, and then 1 string, and then no strings. So at each time, they keep taking strings off the vina, the string instrument, and then by the time there's no strings, still through miraculous power, the Buddha made a beautiful melody, even though no strings. Then that king was humbled. So I think that's it. So these are the skillful means of the Buddha. Delighted with the flavor of your teaching, many wise ones left their beds of gold to sleep on beds of straw. So, you heard many stories in the Buddhist time. Other sort of kings and so forth would leave their palaces and sleep on beds of straw. Because you knew the time and temperaments, sometimes you remained silent when questioned, sometimes you spoke first, and other times you aroused their interest and then spoke. So we have 11 minutes. This is actually a lot can be said. So you'll know from Nagarjuna's Ratnavali, precious garland. Then there are 14 times, I think, when the Buddha didn't respond to a question. And the Buddha is supposedly omniscient. Then some said, oh, hey, look, the Buddha didn't answer these questions. That shows he was not all-knowing. But what Nagarjuna said is, no. This actually proves that the Buddha was omniscient. Because, so these questions, and I can't say all 14, but it was something like, does the universe have a beginning? Does it have an end? Does the consciousness have a beginning? Does it have an end? Does the Tathagata, does the Buddha have a beginning and blah, 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 right? These kinds of things. So the Buddha saw, according to the dispositions of the beings, if he said, if he said, and another one was like, okay, does the Buddha survive after parinirvana? Okay. So anyway, the Buddha saw, if he said the Buddha survives, then the person asking the question would fall into a view of permanence. If he said the Buddha does not survive, they would fall into an extreme of nihilism. Okay. So to avoid those beings having further wrong views, the Buddha just remained silent. Okay. All right. Anytime. Anyway, so this is just showing it's in the chapter in praise of skill. So the Buddha knew from his omniscience exactly what to say, when to say it, and when not to say it, and what not to say, right? Having first scrubbed clean the garment of the mind with talk on generosity and other virtues, you then applied the dye of the Dharma. So again, we talk about in other contexts the so-called six perfections, right? So of course the main one is wisdom. That's number six. But the first one is generosity. So those six perfections, they are listed sort of in the order of their difficulty in practicing. But the thought is, you know, when you start to practice what you can, you get better, and then you can graduate to more difficult practices, right? So especially generosity, you accumulate a lot of merit. That merit then will serve as cooperating conditions for you to have, one, the leisure to pursue teachings in the future, right? I dare even say, you know, okay, this might be a little bit politically incorrect, but you can try. You write the Dalai Lama's, His Holiness the Dalai Lama's office and ask if you can get a private audience with him. See what they say. You think you could? No. Okay. This is my hypothesis. If you know, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, you know, one of these multi-billionaires, if they were to write the Dalai Lama's office and ask for an audience, think you get it? I think so. I think so. Now, of course, many causing conditions, but one element of that, okay, in a good way, I'm not criticizing, right? By all means, you know, if the Dalai Lama had one slot left and he could meet, you know, whatever, you know, one of these big tycoons, I would give up my slot for him to meet whoever, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, because those beings in the world, you know, if they then change their sort of way they're running their business, how many, you know, thousands of employees they have, how much effect they have in the world, it could be a big thing, right? Right? So.
And we were already listening to teaching, so we don't need to go for audience with the show. I'm just saying it.
I thought you went for an audience a couple months ago. No, I'm joking.
If the audience is 500 people.
I'm joking. No, but this is what we're saying, right? Anyway. It's good that you went. I was saying as a hypothetical, if there's only one slot left, but of course, why not? You know, me and Jeff Bezos, and we're together, no problem. Jeff Bezos, you know, there is no expedient or opportunity which you do not use in order to rescue this pitiful world from the fearful abyss of. So I think that's samsara. Yeah, I think the program, all these little diacritical marks, it like freaks out. That's samsara, not sarosara. To train people in different situations according to their state of mind, many and various were the words and deeds you used. So yeah, many stories of this. Oh, we're not going to finish. Okay. So you remember the story of Lam Chung, small path. who was, relatively, let's say, dull-witted when he was trying to study and memorize texts. He would learn one line, then try to go on to the second line. He would learn the second line, but then he would forget the first line. When he would then remember the first line, he would then forget the second line, like that. So, as a skillful means, the Buddha, seeing the situation, then told Lamchung to sweep the temple, to clean the shoes of the Sangha and so forth, and that would purify us. Yeah. They were pure and friendly, honored and praised, saluted and acclaimed by both gods and men. Difficult it is to speak well and then do good, but for you, O truthful one, both these things come easily. So difficult it is to speak well and then do good. I think what this means is, talk is cheap, right? It's very easy to say, oh, all singing beings, like what I'm doing, right? Easy to say, but then to actually do, to live and act in accordance with these principles, very tough. But for you, the truthful one, both these things come easily. So, walking the walk, right? Walking the talk, walking the talk. Yeah, walking the talk, right? By your purity alone, you could have cleansed the whole universe. In the triple world, no one is to be found like you. So here, triple world then can refer, there's two ways. One is we have the form realm, the desire realm, form realm, and formless realm. Then the other triple world, you sometimes see the beings that live below the ground, the beings that live on the ground, and the beings that live above the ground. So in other words, like worms living below ground. Us, we live on the ground. Birds and so forth live above the ground. Okay? Anyway, triple world means the universe. Okay. No one is to be found like you. You rose up for the welfare of all beings lost in the beginningless and fearful straits of becoming. Here again, becoming, synonymous with samsara. Straits, straits. So the Singapore newspapers, the Straits Times. Thank you, son. So there at the end, right? Singapore is right at the end of the peninsula. So those like the shipping lane, right? That go by Singapore, those are the Straits. Straits of Malacca. Right, it's a place in Malaysia, just over, right? So these are the Straits. So in other words, quite narrow way to navigate, very treacherous, right? There could be rocks, you get shipwrecked, these things. So fearful straits of becoming, that's where we are. In samsara, very narrow pathway to beyond the up and up, the right and good. But in such a difficult situation where the path is very narrow, the Buddha is our guide, our lighthouse, showing us the way. Okay? So, Dutsu Dzogson. Okay, this is a free Tibetan lesson. Dutsu is time. Dzog, finished. Dzogson. Did you know that, Shanti? Yes? This is also?
I didn't know, but I can know the words.
Okay, good. So let's end here. We end with a dedication. So we dedicate all of our merit we accumulated today, as well as all the merit accumulated in the past, present, and future by numberless sentient beings and numberless Buddhas, that we can develop all these qualities of the Buddha in our minds and our hearts, and then lead all other sentient beings to do the exact same thing as quickly as possible. We also dedicate for all the beings who recently died. So there's quite a few of the FPMT Sangha who recently died, including the Tamil. Anyway, one of my classmates from school also recently passed away in the cold June. All the beings in the bardo, mainly reborn in pure language and achieve enlightenment, or at the very least, again, attain a perfect human rebirth, meet with the Maya teachings, Maya virtuous friend, and attain enlightenment in the next lifetime. And for all the approximate causes of suffering in the world, suffering due to war, suffering due to natural disasters, environmental degradation, famine, disease, and so forth, may all of these sufferings be pacified and over again. We also dedicate for the long lives of spiritual friends, particularly the Son of Dalai Lama, and may they continue to guide us and lead us, showing us the path to enlightenment until samsara is empty. We also dedicate for the quick return of Long's Rinpoche. May his unmistaken reincarnation appear in this world and show the aspect of being a great teacher, great practitioner, and continue to guide us until the end of samsara. Okay, thank you. So we're here again tomorrow at 10 a.m. with teaching on Matrceta. So hope you can make it. Thank you for your time. Okay. Sunny Jeon.
Thank you, Wonderful.
Dilshad, I hope. Where's Shabira? Okay.
Dilshad is on mute.
Huh? You're muted.
Oh, hi, Wonderful.
Hi.
Buddy.
I can't really hear you. Anyway. Be good. Oh, there she is.
Hello, Wonderful.
Have you also been listening, or
How are you?
at the end? I'm pretty